tentative budget.
Tentative budget for the 1920 or 2019-2020 school year. That would have been bad if I would have said 1920 school year, right? So I've asked Mary Ann to put this on the board agenda as basically just a discussion item to give the Board of Education an idea of how this kind of works. The board agenda or the board budget is technically not formally approved until September. And so what is a little odd about that is the school district and the township treasurer operate on a fiscal year of July 1 through June 30th. So technically, the school district will almost be completing its first quarter of spending in operation before the budget is formally approved by the board.
So is that statutory or is that practice?
That is, I would say, well, it's practice. I should say statutory because all school district budgets in the state of Illinois have to be submitted before September 30th.
Okay.
And the fiscal year that our township treasurer operates on is July 1. And so, I've only been handling budgets the 8 years I've been here, so that is the practice we have also had. Now, there are some things to this. One, at the end of this month, you'll get a first read of what we call a tentative budget. So what the state does require is the board approves a tentative budget and it's on display for at least 30 days before the board approves its formal budget. And I will give Kristen will be developing the budget for next year since she's shifting to that role. And we'll put a budget timeline in the packet next week or 2 weeks from now. So, but basically what I wanted to explain is we'll see this budget for the first time in May. It will be preliminary numbers because we won't even have the June 30th actuals yet. So what we've kind of done in the past is I give you a rough draft in May. We talk about it again in June. We approve it in June so that it's on display, and we put it on display for 60 days. We put it on display for June and July, or excuse me, July and August, the rest of June, all of July, and all of August. Then in July, I'll give you an updated tentative budget with the June 30th actuals so you can actually see how the previous fiscal year finished up. We used the month of July and August to make changes, to amend the budget, to tweak certain areas, to see if there's any reductions the board wants to implement. And then we start finalizing the formal budget in September. So in addition to working on the goals and the mission that you talked about at previous meetings, a majority of your time in the summer will be budget review, and you'll see multiple versions of the budget throughout the summer. Now, the changes. I mean, 75% of our budget is personnel, and salaries and benefits. So there's not a lot that will change from when you see it in June through September. The few things may be, if we get an increase in transfers, or if there's any increases in maybe special education, or an increase in special services that need to be provided for special education, maybe an increased number of transfers and an additional class of a required graduation requirement needs to be added. So the changes you'll see through July and August before September, will not be anything of, 7 figures. It's usually 100,000 here or there, but the numbers you'll see by the June tentative budget will be pretty accurate. So I'm throwing that out there because in my experience with new boards and going through the school finances, it is backwards. I'm not going to lie to you. It seems kind of weird that, right? We're spending July and August to get ready to open school and hire new coaches, and fall sports start the second week of August, and we don't approve the budget till the second or third week of September, right? So it is somewhat of an awkward process, so that's why I wanted to prepare you before you see the first budget in May. Now, we'll have some additional Finance Advisory Council meetings through May, June, even in July, just to make sure, or to tweak some things, or answer questions, or make sure there's plenty of time to vet every single light item for the entire board before September. So I don't want you to think It's not a transparent process. It's just somewhat of a slow and kind of backwards process.
It certainly confused me when we started. I don't know if I still like it, but it is what
It is school code. I looked it up and I just showed Wes. Like, it is school
She was
code
happy
that
to
it
tell
says,
me.
deadline to adopt the joint agreement budget, September
September
1st, adopt the school district budget, September 30th.
Right. So I was
Makes
right
some
with
sense.
this.
Your favorite thing to read school code.
I do like school code.
So, one other thing to help you out here. Last year, the previous board was very into the finances and had some real strong financial minds on the board. And last year, we had one board member in particular that wanted us to be very specific on our budgets because, we would have a budget that would say, hey, we're going to have a $300,000 deficit. And then all of a sudden on June 30th, we'd have a $600,000 surplus. And it'd be, a $900,000 swing. And so we did a 5-year analysis of the school district's budgets, and Wes was will remember this as well. I think he might have been at one of those meetings. We were within $25,000 every year on our expenditures. It's the revenue that, because when the state pays their bills. So if we get all of our state reimbursements, all of our state payments before June 30th, the budget will come out pretty accurate. If we get, sometimes we'll get payments where the 4th of July lands. If the treasurer's office doesn't make those payments till after the 4th of July, they now count for the previous fiscal year, and it looks like we over budgeted, under budgeted revenues. So I mean, it's a really unique process that I promise I will go very slow with to make sure everybody understands it, and you'll have plenty of time to ask questions and discuss it at the public meetings. But I just wanted to kind of set the table for you before you start to see budget items at our next meeting.
And Scott, is the state up to date with its payments?
Still chasing one.
Okay, that's actually pretty good.
They just released the third payment last week, right?
Well,
Categorical?
they said they're going to release it, but until you receive it, you're still chasing it. So the practice normally has been
almost
that
never
they
get all
release
four.
it almost the last week of June.
So typically,
would
we
get-
budget, just so the board understands, we get some of these things called categorical payments, which is like special ed reimbursement, transportation reimbursement. You're supposed to get 4 quarterly payments. We traditionally budget so that we get 3 of this year's payments and 1 of next year's payments. So you're still getting 4 payments, but it's not the actual 4 that apply. Does that make sense?
Scott, what is the amount that we're waiting on?
About 240, 250 from the state, 250,000.
And you're thinking we're gonna get that
We
on
should.
the last week of June?
That's what I'm.
If we receive that third categorical, will we then be on par with what we budgeted for?
Yes.
Okay.
And the payments, you get 1 from the prior year, the 4th quarter payment, and then 3 from the current year.
So this third categorical is from FY19,
Yes.
and we already received the 1 from FY18.
Yes.
Well, that'd be positive.
That would be a good thing,
And we would get all 4 payments as we
budgeted for,
budgeted for.
Correct.
We might actually have a real budget
right?
this time. Maybe.
So, Bill, Deanna, is there any questions? Is there anything in particular you want me to go over, or just, does that help set the table a little bit?
Yeah, there'll be questions, I'm sure, myself and, again, as things go along. But typical, after the fact, I'll probably have about 10 questions at about 10 o'clock tonight.
It's okay.
But that's,
Like I said, we'll spend 3 months on it. So, and especially since we have 3 new board members, this will be their first budget, we'll make sure it's as transparent. You have any questions, we'll make sure we answer them and discuss it, okay?
Yeah. All right, thank you. I did ask Kevin to explain that because it's complicated. Doesn't make any sense. Visitor statements? He's like, no, I don't want to do it. Okay. That one. Additional discussion items. At this point in the meeting, Board of Education members may request to add an additional discussion item.
No.
no.
Okay.